Hey guys, how's it going? It's Kire here, joined once again with VEILEDSHOT, and in today's video we're going to be roasting VEILEDSHOT's tier list here. He put in a lot of time, a lot of effort to make a very detailed tier list that for the most part I think is fantastic, and I think this is a really good resource. But really the whole point of this video is to be able to ask the questions about why he placed characters in particular places. If there's ones that I completely disagree with or think could be changed, we're going to call that out. And then by the end of this, I think we're all going to be a little bit more knowledgeable when it comes to IMR. Also, I think we're going to be a lot closer than you would think. You don't need to roast him in the comments or whatever. I think we all kind of agree here when it comes to this game, and we might be off by a couple numbers, but it's not like it's a complete crazy thing. And at the end of the day, if you think there's something different, let us know in the comments specifically what you think is wrong so we can make this information as accurate as possible, because that's what we care about. We don't care about being right or wrong. We care about what is accurate. So let's get into this. So I really like this format. I think this is a really nice, easy to read format. I like the overall average here. I do think in the future there was a couple things you wanted to improve on this and be able to add to it. I believe at the end of your video when you had this, you were saying that you wanted to like rank the exclusive, like how good an exclusive is.
Yeah, so there's a few things with this. One, there's definitely like ratings to how important an area of the game is. For example, like Arena is an area of the game, in my opinion, that isn't necessarily as important as a lot of the other areas of the game. Guild Boss is a little bit higher of importance than the dungeons, and I think factions also are another one that, and Tower are another ones that, you know, you get your Catherine exclusives, you get your auras from there, that could be a little bit more important. And so like weighted averages, obviously adjusting any of the numbers. This is a tier list, as you're saying about like the divisiveness of tier lists. I think when you put up a tier list with portraits in S tier, A tier, people are like, screw you, you put my favorite character in D tier. Like, you're just trash, man. Like, you're garbage, awful info. Whereas this, you're like, okay, like I use this example, and the person knows who I'm talking about, because we got in an argument, but you know, all good. Deschanel was someone that I was like, feed. But in Gwyneth, you know, I put her as a 10 because I've seen some people pair her with space and be able to cycle through the severe wound fast enough. Without space, it's kind of hard to do that, but you need her to be fast and you need her to have a lot of turn meter boosts and speed ups to be able to permanently apply Gwyneth. And so to me, you know, okay, if this guy has a very solid argument against that, you could see the value in a certain game mode. Maybe she's not a 10, maybe you disagree with that, because I know you have opinions on Deschanel, but you're able to go ahead and actually see where they're good rather than just they're all out trash. And as you said, I'm looking to rate how important the exclusives are for each of these characters, as well as rate their updated numbers with their exclusives, because this is an exclusive 0 tier list. You'll note there's not a lot of 10s across the board. You know, when you're going into factions in Tower, I'm a little bit more lenient because you need more characters in those, so they're by nature just a better character. But like when you're talking about dungeons, like the only people that are really 10s are like the absolute number 1 character or number 2 character type thing. So that's kind of like the basic rundown of this whole thought process that I'm going into.
Okay, well, I'm glad you said that it's exclusive 0, because in that case, I think there's a lot of characters that shouldn't even be 9s or 10s. I don't think there should be a single character at you know, like when it comes to this, like Catherine right here, she's 10 across the board. At exclusive 0, I think maybe an 8 or a 9, you know, for example, when it comes to that. I think that's going to change the numbers in all of this, because like she gains so much from just exclusive 1, and then she gains so much more at exclusive 3. Like she becomes a whole new character when she can have her shield on a 3-turn cooldown. So it's like those are big jumps there that I don't think we can't signify those with the number if she's already at a 10. So she's like at a super 10, or she got a 10 prestige, you know, like when she gets there. So I think those are going to be things in the future, maybe for this list.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I completely agree. I mean, we've talked about this before, off camera, on camera. Catherine, those of you that play Summoner's War way back when, the first fusion you would go for is Veramos. Why? Really, the only thing he was offering was a cleanse every single turn on your team. It's such an important thing to run in a game like this, in a gacha game, when you have that permanent every turn cleanse. Not only that, then she also gets, you know, the extra turns later on and all that stuff. So 100% agree. And to be honest, with that in mind, obviously this was just a first iteration, and I wanted to represent to people that these characters are really good. But you're right, I could drop literally every character here probably about 2 points. Every single character, every number that you see here could probably be dropped about 2 points, considering exclusive 0. Because I agree with you, Catherine at exclusive 1 will jump from like an 8 overall in the game to like an absolute 10 just with the exclusive 1.
completely agree there, because it's such a big difference to be able to have that cleanse constantly. You want to like build her differently, where you want her fastest. It like changes the entire characters. I think that's going to be something that it makes sense on the first iteration of this to represent how strong they are, and it would be kind of weird without that, because this is such a long project too. So I could see why you would kind of not want to do that until later when you have it all, because it's a pretty big undertaking to do this kind of stuff. But I think we both agree there that eventually this is going to look different, and then people are going to get dropped down, but then you're going to be able to contrast that with other characters that when you have them exclusive 1, when you have them exclusive 2 and stuff like that, and you see, okay, that makes sense kind of thing.
Kind of for me, it was like a tier list, in my opinion, should probably have a top end. And so once I do exclusive 1, which will be the next kind of project, Izania, Catherine, these characters, like just look at the top 2 right here in terms of overall that I have, they're, in my opinion, like Izania's exclusive 1 is so good. They're going to be kind of like 10s in my opinion, truly, because they do get a little bit better with later exclusives. But in my opinion, like once they get that first exclusive, it really changes their whole kit. And as you're saying, I can drop them down now on this list to represent the difference between exclusive 0 and exclusive 1. So 100% agree.
Okay, just look into this. And also I feel like I'm gonna be very nitpicky here, but first one, I feel like that I'm just seeing, I'm just getting no particular order here in these particular nitpicks, but first one I see is I don't think at exclusive 0 Melia should be a 10 in campaign. I feel like she should be lower a bit, because there's a big difference. I feel like Sigmund, Hoff even potentially, like I would need to run through it again, but I bet she's probably on the same level as Hoff, because it's like she does really well with like single target and being able to kill bosses, whereas you have a person like Sigmund, I think is just like objectively better. Quinlan's probably a better now, but didn't exist at the time when we were trying to do campaign. Like basically it's just like Hazonia's better for campaign, and I think a like some kind of thing to signify that would be good, because she's so single target that, and it's all wave content for the most part.
There's like 2 parts to campaign that I had to think about, right? There's the early game and then the late game of campaign. Not that they're late game in campaign, because campaign you never run again, right? You basically never run campaign again after you finished it. So like there's the initial, okay, I need to get to hell mode, right? That's what it's called, I think, right? Hell mode. So it's hell. So like there's the first one where it's like I have to get to hell. The first 3, I believe that Melia is a 10 in that situation, where she can self-sustain. That's the portion where you have maybe 1 awakened 5. The next character's like awakened 2, awakened 1. You only have that 1 character, and I think Melia is the absolute best at that stage. She gets the life steal, she gets the counterattack. You know, you can build her with like the fearless sets, and she gets a ton of value out of that one. But then as you reach into that, I need a 3-star now, I think she drops down actually quite a bit, because the extra turn hurts you, the single target damage hurts you, and then people like Sigmund become like really heavy beasts in AoE HP burning, and they don't take that extra turn. So I 100% agree later on, and I could see her dropping, because I would view her more like an 8 even in the 3-star campaign if you don't have any exclusives. Once you get exclusive 2, that turns into a 10 to me, because she has the AoE HP burn again. But until then, yeah, I could see that. So let's go ahead and put it, what do you think, 8, 9? I'll change it right here.
I think we'd have to kind of go over all the other HP burners too, but I think probably like an 8 or a 9 I'd be happy with. But because it's how you have it kind of ranked up there too, because it's, you got Quinlan. I know Quinlan kind of hurts himself too. Probably like Hoff is a 10. I think Hoff is like fantastic on the waves, but then when you get to the boss, you're gonna really miss, you know, Amelia. So it's kind of like they both kind of trade on and off. So it's like if she's dropping, I feel like kind of Hoff needs to drop too, because it's like you're not gonna care about the support. Like what if like Hoff was your main carry? You're gonna have like multiple moments like waiting for that cooldown to come back. So it's like I don't think he deserves to be a 10 either. But and then you know, like you got space here, but like I think just the concept here alone, let's just keep it moving, and then we can kind of go over the specifics. But I just wanted to address them, you know, because it's like I feel like we can make this video like 50. We can make this video an hour if we really wanted to.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So
this is 100% true.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of continue on that point, the one thing that I noticed as a pretty big criticism, there's already a few numbers that I've adjusted, like a Naziel and Arena. For those of you that watch my video, I've already adjusted some of the numbers. The one thing that people mention as like a kind of a category was that factions and tower was rated too high across the board, and I could kind of see that. Obviously, there's a kind of a different thought process that goes into factions and towers, because in tower you limit your playable characters by 1/4, and then in factions you limit it by 1/10. So you know, you kind of have to have a higher kind of upside because there's so many limited characters. But I kind of agree with, okay, I could see dropping a lot of these characters a little bit further down the list.
I think the big thing is you just probably don't have a like a differentiation between arena offense and arena defense. But I feel like to be a 10 in arena, you have to be not only one of the best heroes in the game, but like a really good at a specific thing. Because it's like, if we're looking at the top of arena, I really don't think Elmet can ever be considered a 10 there, even optimally on the offensive side doing what he wants to do. Because it's like arena is so competitive that people just stack mythics. So it's like, I almost feel like almost no legendaries are even 10s, you know, besides Catherine. I think Catherine's like the only arena 10 almost. And then maybe you can argue that there's a legendary arena 10s on offense, but it's very hard to be a legendary arena 10 besides like Nasil and then that new character that just came out. I forget his name.
Yeah, Mamek. Yeah, no, I agree. A Malik here, really when you're thinking about this, and I completely agree. I want to separate arena offense and arena defense in the future. I kind of just got a total arena right now list, but I think arena offense and defense are completely different. Like, I don't think Naziel is nearly as good on arena offense if you want like decently quick battles as he is on defense. But then there's the argument of like top tier arena. Like when you're getting to the top tier, the offensive comps and defensive comps are just 1 damage dealer and then 4 like tanky support type units. And then Amalik is almost like not a non-factor. But when you're in like Diamond and you're speeding through these arena comps, Amalik is suddenly one of the best characters because he applies the defense down and tenacity down on a guarantee, and he's a force character, so he never gets those like negative affinity, you know, situations. So I agree, you know, on top tier arena, he's a lot worse, defense, things like that. So yeah, everything that you're saying, I completely understand where you're coming from there.
The big hurdle nowadays is Ben Austin. I think Ben Austin is just like, they basically gave Warlord's like the best arena character in Raid, and everyone could get him. Like, imagine if everyone was guaranteed a Warlord, basically being able to reset cooldowns like that. It's not like super guaranteed because it's like a 35%er, even with a ton of effect hit, but still, it is an incredibly oppressive character that I just don't see. Like, when you make a character like that that can do what Ben Austin could do, he's always going to be there. It's so difficult to get through that because there's no way to, like, you know, you can stack up a whole bunch of effect hit, but that doesn't really do anything. You can always just build effect resist, but then they'll just build up a ton of effect hit anyway. And so it's like, he's an incredibly oppressive character that I think that's why people like it's such a brutal place to be in that game mode. That's what, and then also Nasil being able to cut through, and that's at the top. But I think, like, at least how I look at arena, I like to see what is the hypothetical. If I was a massive whale, what works up there? That's how I like to look at arena. Even though that there is like very clear tiers, it's hard to, it gets really wishy-washy at that point because it's like, okay, well, where is that? Is that because it's always a sliding scale? Because as the game keeps going on, then those clear tiers get harder and harder, and that goalpost keeps moving and moving. Whereas the one goalpost that doesn't move is like the absolute top. So when you can go there, then you can see it objectively. Like, that is what's working at the top. Let's try to reverse engineer it and see how it applies to myself, who's not nearly as big of a whale as them, and just try to work it out from there. But at least has something to kind of lean on, and that's how I like to look at it. But I see your point too about multiple tiers and like not having to worry about that. But when the problem character is a mythic that everyone's guaranteed to get eventually, and eventually like the new normal is going to be like 3 mythic characters, all exclusive 3, all in arena, like I just don't see him ever, you know, even on arena offense, it's going to be very tough to use this guy, you know. So it's, at least that's how I look at it for arena.
Yeah, and as you're mentioning mythics, I just want to touch on that one. I would like to rate the mythics as well, but my initial thought process was that I'd rate them separately because I wanted them to be rated against each other. I'll probably do 2 lists, one including on these lists, and then one a separate rating against each other, kind of like establishing who the better mythics are. Because unlike legendaries, you just get them if you summon, right? You summon, you get them. You know, that's just how they come about. Whereas mythics, you actually have to make a choice and spend your resources on them, which is why, in my opinion, they're a little bit different. And then of course, they're also guaranteed, meaning you can all choose to go for a certain idea. Like, let's say you want to go for Gwyneth. Well, E1 Lucifer is arguably the best character for that. So, you know, you have a lot of different options for mythics. And as you're saying, Ben Austin, he's like the most general utility character, great in an arena, great in factions, great in guild boss, best in guild boss, and great for waves in general. So as you're saying, there's a lot of different things that are still missing here. And I'm appreciative of all the feedback coming at me right now.
Because you're willing to update it and keep it going, I think this is the best time to just give like legit, like good, feedback for this, because I think there's a lot of people in the comments that have said good things. I'm trying to do the thing, and we can make this a really good community resource that's like, okay, this has been vetted, it's been talked about multiple times, and have like a lot of I feel like tier lists are so common, and then that's why they get so divisive, because they think it's just like, okay, this is obviously a popular video, people just want the views, and they don't want to actually put the work in and make it actually good. But if we're willing to put the work in, then this is the best time to like give good advice. These tier lists, there's so many characters that it's impossible for one person to do this. It's like, it shouldn't be the expectation that you just nail this, so I think that's another thing too, that you get all these other perspectives, and then people can like legitimately look at this as a resource, and it's like, okay, here's the best tier list by far, because it's not only in real time, it's been vetted by, at this point, thousands of people, and you get to hear all those different inputs. And then this is the ideal solution for a tier list, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, there's just like a practical aspect. Like, I know some people dislike tier lists. I'm one of those people that I believe any resource giving information on opinions is always good. It's just up to the person to deliver it or the person to interpret it. Don't take anything face value, right? Like, for example, if I were to make a beginner's guide, which I did, or if you're going to make a beginner's guide, or if you're going to make a factions guide, well, people need to know what every character in the game is, because we don't make videos on every character. Like, I'm not going to make a video, okay, here, use these campaign characters, they're the best. Well, what's, number 7? That's what's number 8, not the top 5. And that's where things like this come really in handy. For example, like if I were to go into campaign and I were to summon, I don't know, someone like later on, I'm summoning like Walter. Like, well, no one's mentioned Walter in campaign, but he's actually really good in campaign because he gets the healing from poisons. He gets poison damage out there, reducing the damage, and actually dealing a decent amount of damage. So, when you get to those like 8s, those 9s, or those 8s and those 7s on this tier list, that's when, something like this comes in really handy, because everyone knows Catherine is like the best. Everyone knows Hizanya is the best, assuming you're not like a day one player. Those are the first things you learn. But then what about, Fiona? What about Slavel? What about Hisaru? That's where this, I think, is a super useful thing. And it only gets better with more opinions injected into it. So 100%.
Well, and I think what people do is they pull the character, they see the character, and then they want to see where that character stacks up. They don't know if they're excited yet or not, until they see some kind of big repository of information. And that's where these kind of tier lists really excel, like you're saying. So I do think Deschanel should not be a 10. It should not be a 10 in Gwyneth. Like, maybe a 7, maybe an 8, like, because it's like there's only certain characters that can really make it work, and then you have to imagine like you take an entire slot for a character just for one move. She does nothing else really. Small turn meter boost, like compared to the standard, because I feel like there's, I guess, a couple ways to look at it. Like, I think, for example, like when it comes to particular factions, it's like I don't like to rate Alec an S tier, because if you look at another faction, Catherine, way better. So it's like that's the true S tier, and then the best faction of like, or the best tier for like a defensive character or the same role would be like an A tier for that. Whereas in this game, when it comes to people that can inflict feebleness, you have Deschanel, but then you have Lucifer. So it's like, how can you ever rate Deschanel a 10 when you have Lucifer on there, when Lucifer is clearly like, not only does that brings a ton of damage, brings defense down potentially, it's like they're on two different stratospheres there. So it's like, if it was one of those things where it was like there's no good one and you're just kind of stuck with it, then yes, you would have to bring it, make her a 10 because it's the only one that exists. But when you have someone else, yes, it's a mythic, but it's like, okay, there's no way she's a 10 at that, even though she is a character that you could do if you build an entire team around it, make sure she's fast enough, gets enough turn meter to keep applying it, you're beating. It's very difficult to do, but at least it's possible. So she deserves to have a high rating, but not a 10, in my opinion. So
yeah, I agree. Also, exclusive 0, actually, that is also another factor into this. So especially with exclusive 0, I agree. She's definitely not a 10. I definitely took that one to heart when I heard it was actually a couple different people that say they really like Deschanel for Gwyneth. So I agree. I personally am of the opinion that she's kind of mediocre in Gwyneth, simply because, as you mentioned, like if I'm gonna go for Gwyneth and that's my strategy, I'm not gonna awaken 5 at Deschanel. I'm gonna go get an exclusive 1 Lucifer and get that going, right? Like that's what you're gonna do. It's guaranteed. It's a great character in all different sorts of areas of the game, and he's the absolute best for Gwyneth as your damage dealer and severe goon. So I 100% agree with that. So
yeah, but at least she can do it.
Probably like a 7.
Yeah, she can at least do it. So she deserves some kind of number higher than the other ones. So okay, let's see if there's anything else here when it comes to this list. I think conceptually we covered a lot of the main things when it comes to this, and like I'm curious to hear in the comments if people want like a really long version of this, because like I think this is a pretty niche topic, but at the same time I think really helpful for the community. I just want to keep talking about this like periodically through the videos, we're just going to keep linking this. Like, I'm going to make this a link on my channel as well as just a big repository of information. And the fact that it is fluctuating and can potentially be patched and changed means that I think it's a really good tier list that's only going to keep getting better from here.
Yeah, I'll mention this. I always have a date next to the tier list name. So if you're ever curious what the latest updates are, for example, today is January 15th. So we're going to drop January 15th is the last time I updated this and looked at it, at least what I can do in terms of people that bring things to my attention. I also have to add the new characters on here, like Namek, for example. He's not on here. I have to add him. I haven't gone to add the new characters. I usually like to wait a couple weeks because otherwise it's pure theory, right? I haven't even seen any of the content on him. I don't have him. So, but you know, in Arena, he's like in across every single Arena comp that I've seen in theater.
Oh yeah, all the whales like immediately, like day one, got him exclusive 3. They just like read his kit. It was like, oh, this is a no-brainer. Like, I feel like he's gonna be, if I just, you know, like at least 9s in a lot of places. 10s in most. He's insane.
There's just so many things. It's like so many moving parts to this game because unlike almost every other gacha game that I've played, you get a character, they kind of do what they need to do, assuming you like book them out or you get their skills up. In this game, it's like, well, now you got to summon multiple copies of these legendaries. And so exclusives are such a heavy weighing factor that is very rare to come by. And so, you know, like whole kits change based on exclusives. And so it's very difficult to do one solid tier list. You have to do like 3 because you need to get each exclusive in there and compare them against the other ones that are exclusive in that category. So definitely a very long-term project, but I think it could lead to a lot of interesting videos, and hopefully anyone who stumbles upon this is actually useful for them.
I believe it is. You know, like when these tier lists don't update, it's like I can understand some frustration there because you really don't know if it's actually still relevant potentially, because it's like a lot of people have problems with tier lists because it's like, oh, what if they do something wrong or they feed a character? Like, I don't think it's the tier list problem if someone does a dumb move. Like, it shouldn't be you know, their responsibility, you know, but at the same time it is the responsibility of the person making the tier list to have the best information, and the only way to do that is to constantly update it, especially in a game like this that everything changes so rapidly. So I think let's wrap it up here. I think this is good. It's fun to be able to have conversations here and kind of understand the reason why in situations like, as the commenter, being able to just look at the number, like, I completely disagree with the number, but not being able to say anything. I think that causes a lot of like why people get so divisive about it. Also, I feel like a lot of people want to justify their decisions, and so if we say something's bad but then they know that they've already built that character and we think it sucks, they're going to justify building it. So it's like, I get it. It's kind of like you buy something cool, you buy a car or whatever, and then people go like, you bought that? That's a stupid car. Why would you buy that car? Like, I think that's just human nature to get really mad over that because they made that choice. So thanks for joining me. This was a lot of fun. Be sure to check out VEILEDSHOT's channel. Links down in the description. And with that, guys, we are out of here. Peace.
Peace.